Assalamu alaikum. Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower. Power has changed its language. It now speaks in data, networks, algorithms, and resilience. In the 21st century, a nation that cannot defend its digital space cannot defend its sovereignty. Pakistan's military understood this early, not to dominate the digital state, but to secure it. Hosted by Mr. Ali and Miss Aisha, authored by Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir, this is episode 50, Military-Led Digital Transformation Strategy.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our channel, Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower. Today, we're diving into something really fascinating. Now, when you picture a nation's military power, what comes to mind? Probably soldiers, right? Tanks, jets, naval ships, the physical stuff of warfare. But what if I told you that in the 21st century, the most critical battlefield isn't a piece of land you can walk on, but a digital space you can't even see? We are about to explore the story of how Pakistan's military undertook this colossal pivot into cyberspace. This wasn't just a small tactical change, it was a deep, strategic move that aimed to redefine the country's entire digital future.
And for this deep dive, we're looking at episode 50, which is based entirely on the book The Generals of Pakistan by Zahir Ahmad Mir. This work gives us the essential framework, the why and the how behind this absolutely monumental shift in strategic thinking. It's our guide to understanding the logic and the doctrine that drove this entire transformation.
You know, this one quote really gets to the heart of the whole story. Let's just let that sink in for a second. Power isn't just about what you can blow up anymore. It's about data, algorithms, networks, and digital resilience. For the military leadership in Pakistan, the book explains that this wasn't just some abstract idea to kick around in a meeting. No, they saw this as a fundamental existential reality. You either adapt to this new world or you risk being left catastrophically vulnerable. The game had changed, and the very definition of national strength was being rewritten.
So, that brings us to the first big question, the one that kicks this all off. Why? Why would one of the world's largest, most established armies decide to pivot so hard into this new, unfamiliar battlefield of cyberspace? What was the trigger?
And really, the question boils down to this. Was this a move to grab more power, or was it a raw survival instinct kicking in? According to the book, the answer is pretty clear. The decision was driven by a new set of unavoidable, undeniable national threats that simply could not be addressed with traditional military tools. The world had changed, and a response was required. The book lays out 5 of these new realities that basically force their hand. First off, you've got cyber warfare. Suddenly, a hostile state could cripple your country without ever firing a shot. Second, think about our economy. Banking, commerce, utilities, it's all moving online. That makes it a massive, centralized target. Third, even terrorism was evolving, using encrypted apps and online platforms to coordinate. Fourth, you have the rise of information warfare, using propaganda and disinformation to destabilize a society from within. And finally, and this is a huge one, a deep dependence on foreign digital infrastructure, which creates a massive systemic vulnerability. Any one of these is a problem. All 5 together, that's a crisis.
So, the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. In this new environment, doing nothing was simply not an option. It's like having a country with 4 borders, land, sea, air, and then discovering a 5th virtual frontier that was wide open, with no guards, no walls, nothing. An undefended cyberspace meant an undefended nation, period.
Okay, so recognizing the threat is one thing, but actually building a response, that's a whole other ballgame. So how did they do it? Well, the process started from within. It was a very methodical, step-by-step plan to digitize the nation's defense right from the ground up. And the approach was incredibly systematic, like building a digital fortress brick by brick. You can't just jump to the end. First, you have to lay the foundation, right? So step 1 was building their own secure internal military communication networks. Then, once the foundation was solid, they started wiring everything up, integrating all intelligence data into one clear, coherent picture. Only after that was in place did they move to digitize battlefield operations themselves, and finally, to run the whole show, they established a formal, unified cyber command. It was a logical step-by-step progression. Now here's where it gets really interesting. This internal modernization, this success within the military, didn't just stay there. It became the digital backbone for the entire country. You see, by proving that this kind of large-scale digital transformation was possible, that it could be done securely and effectively, The military essentially gave the civilian government and other institutions both the confidence and, in many ways, the blueprint to pursue a wider national digital strategy.
But this, of course, raises a really critical question. What was the military's role supposed to be outside of its own barracks and bases? The book really emphasizes a key distinction here. The stated goal was always enablement, not a takeover.
And this slide really lays out that core distinction perfectly. On one hand, you have the common fear, the misconception of the military seeking some kind of digital monopoly, controlling everything. But on the other hand, the stated objective, as laid out in the source, was the complete opposite: to act as an enabler for civilian sectors, providing a secure foundation upon which they could then build, grow, and innovate themselves.
So what does enablement actually look like in the real world? Well, in practice, it meant using military-grade security to shield the country's critical infrastructure. We're talking about power grids, financial networks, things we all rely on. It meant having a plan to ensure the country could keep functioning during a major cyber attack. It also meant creating a safe digital space where new industries like fintech and telecom could grow without fear. It meant backing the government's own e-governance services and, this is so important, shielding the nation's data sovereignty, making sure our collective data stays protected. All of this brings us to today, to the complex doctrine that governs this immense new capability. And it's described perfectly here as a delicate, ongoing digital balancing act. It's not a simple thing. It's a constant effort to get it right.
The book defines the current approach to this balancing act as the Asam-Nir doctrine. So what is that exactly? Well, think of it as a philosophy of quiet competence. It's a strategy of disciplined and understated digital statecraft. The core idea is that this digital strength isn't a weapon to be flaunted or a political tool to be paraded around. Instead, it's treated as a silent, professional responsibility that has to be handled with extreme care and professionalism away from the public spectacle.
And this doctrine has several key characteristics. Coordination is kept institutional, behind the scenes, not public. Why? To avoid politicizing security decisions. The security focus is squarely on the economy, because a stable economy is seen as the absolute center of gravity for national stability. A top priority is protecting what are called digital corridors, basically the pathways for data and commerce that are vital to our modern world. There's also a clear mandate to support the development of future tech, like AI. And, critically, there's a stated goal of avoiding any and all political interference.
But let's be realistic here. Of course, concentrating this much power, especially this kind of invisible digital power, in one institution comes with huge, undeniable risks. The book is very clear on this point. For this strategy to be sustainable and healthy in the long term, there have to be clearly defined limits. There have to be boundaries.
And these are the red lines that the book lays out as absolutely essential. These are the guardrails. First, civilian government must always have the final say on policy. It's not a military-led initiative, it's a state-led one. Second, the entire system must be subject to independent judicial oversight. Third, there have to be firm, legally binding boundaries on data privacy for citizens. Fourth, freedom of the media must be protected. And above all, the Constitution remains supreme. These are presented as the non-negotiable pillars holding the entire strategy up.
This really brings us to the source's concluding argument. It rejects both extremes. It rejects neglecting the digital domain, which is naive, but it also rejects dominating it, which is dangerous. The ideal role, as it's articulated right here, is one of guardianship. A force that protects the digital state quietly, securely, and always within the firm bounds of the Constitution.
So we're left with this crucial, thought-provoking question, and it's one that really goes far beyond any single country. Pakistan's journey, as detailed in this book, just highlights a universal challenge of our time. How do you build a digital fortress to protect your way of life without accidentally turning that fortress into a prison? Can any nation, anywhere in the world, truly achieve digital security without sacrificing